It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Could you be mine? Would you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Could you be mine? Would you be mine? I've always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. I don't know, maybe. I don't know who's on the other end. I don't know who's paying attention. I'm sorry. But you know what? We all can kind of live in a form of a neighborhood on the interwebs, in a sense. Any number of communities that can come about from that. It's a beautiful thing, really. Considering how isolated many of us have been in any number of ways. You know, one can be quite isolated and still be amidst others often. But are they really connected? Are they really being seen? Is it okay for them to? And if they don't feel like they can, well, maybe there's something to that, a little bit more than just what's going on within them. I mean, yeah, it's part of it. It's a big part of it. But environment is a factor too. Big time. We're a lot more like plants in many ways than a number of folks care to consider. We happy plants. It's a Terence McKenna thing. He was very big into that perspective as well. His brother Dennis, the botanist. Dennis, phenomenal guy too. But yeah, there's just certain things that we need in order to survive and thrive and grow. There's so many worldviews that take like this either or stance in so many things. And after seeing behind many veils, if you will, many times by necessity, and not without a lot of growing pains in the process, a fair amount of times, I find that it's not so often that something is either this or that, but rather more like this and that. This is separating the wheat from the chaff thing. There's so many things that people oppose and they don't even really understand what it is that they're in opposition to. I've tried to figure out ways to incentivize people doing a little homework so they can have that experience for themselves to see. Say somebody opposes, a particular ideology, and it's a very rigid opposition, and they just believe whatever their trusted authority figure or figures have had to say about said opposition. So there's just not going to have anything to do with looking into it, and for any number of other reasons. If they can do that, get by that, and actually see themselves and actually consider what's being said, you might just find a fair amount of things within that ideology that ring true too. Doesn't mean the whole thing does, but there's something in there worth being said, worth listening to, worth knowing about. And hell, even if they are in just direct opposition, well, wouldn't you at least want to know thy enemy, as one might see it? You can't know your, quote, enemy, end quote, without knowing them, without an intermediary reporting on them. Yeah, it's better. And oh my goodness, you just might find that you don't have an enemy after all. No! Surprising how much one may need an enemy and not even know it. This is a projection thing, more often than not, in my experience and understanding. Repressed and unconscious aspects of self that were demonized, or not necessarily demonized, maybe in some ways, or shamed, into compression, and these things kind of get scattered off from the psyche, and they get projected outwards. So bizarre how these things work. Sometimes they can appear as frightening imagery or nightmares. Some horrible thing pursuing you. This isn't always black and white, by the way. Sometimes these are introjects, and that's something else entirely. But if it is a disavowed aspect of self, well, that which is repressed regresses. So it's not been nurtured, it's not grown. It's been cast out this whole time. Cast out arbitrarily, mind you. By somebody else projecting their own disavowed aspects of self. What you have in essence at this pursuant thing, yeah, it's frenzied, maybe, a little crazy. All it really wants to do is come home to the seat of the soul, the psyche, the soul. Psyche means soul by a number of definitions. That's where the term comes from. Psyche isn't just all headspace, by the way. It's not meant to be. It can certainly be experienced that way. If one is disconnected from all the many technologies in their own body, the interfaces. It's phenomenal things going on in there. But we've had very janky roadmaps about all this for a very long time, and so these things get obfuscated and shadowy, disavowed. It's like, oh no, I want to get out of my head. Like, well, if someone is in their head in this context, like, well, it's because it's kind of a byproduct of not being able to be in the body because of all the crap that's going on in there. And it kind of needs to be more understood and worked with. One thing that can help profoundly is knowing about these things and having it kind of understood in the way that I'm laying out here a little bit. And granted, kind of prototyping a little here. And there's a number of folks who have explained things in these ways. It's always a new way of looking at it, and some finagling and some things that might help save some time in the long run for any number of folks, potentially. And paying it forward, paying it forward what you've learned. So if a number of people hadn't done that before me, for example, oh my, I don't even want to think about it. Jesus, really bad. It's funny, you don't know how bad something really is until you experience what it's like to not have that, or not have it so prevalent, that being whatever the bad thing is. A number of us have been through a lot of really bad things we don't even know, might not even know yet how bad it really was, because it's normalized. And usually as an extension of these kinds of broken ecosystems, it's to suppress and oppress anything that can challenge them. Unfortunately, that which challenges them the most are the things that can grow out of them in a better way. Not just for one, but for many. Things that are homogeneous within the underlying psychobiology. Because there's blueprints in there that are longing for expression, but they have got to have an external stimuli. And not just that, but at minimum, a reduced amount of the external stimuli, which just gives them overwhelming odds at outgrowing. As it turns out, we're not made for this kind of shit. It isn't in alignment with our actual psychobiology. So it's like, okay, well, what's going on here then? Why? I can't think of any other species out there that lives in a way that is anathema to their own underlying psychobiology. If they were, they'd probably look a little crazy. I guess humans have the added ability to hide it a bit more, at least from themselves or from ourselves and from each other. But it doesn't mean it isn't there going on, and for damn good reason. All these parts and pieces that need growth, expansion, integration, all a number of things. And they're just being smooshed down, or denied, or shamed. When there's this profound intelligence in there, that those who would do the shaming, the controlling, the coercive controlling, they have no idea what they're doing. Who is anyone to shame something like that? They don't even understand. I think we have a great responsibility in this whole healing thing, frankly, because in this whole projection process, and the potential unconscious needing of an enemy, for example, well, that creates havoc not just for the self, but for other people. And you make this collectivized to any extent or another, and wowee. That being said, there's no shame in these projections. It's a byproduct of broken systems, the broken way, if you will. The broken way is to break and remain broken with patch and pray as a coping mechanism. Psychobiology can't handle it. Not for long. It's not built for it. What do you know? Oh yeah, it can adapt and it can ossify and all these number of things. But that's the problem. And that's why I say it ain't built for it in any constructive sense. And what do you know? There's resonant information methods of something much more better. And the proof is in the pudding. Not to mention any number of published works, clinical data, and any number of modalities that touch on this in any sort of way. And see, science there's more to it than that, too, in my opinion. It's the whole metaphysical component. That is bananas. It's phenomenal, too. The mandate. I mentioned Terence McKenna earlier. This is an analogy that's inspired by his kind of understanding and perspective. I've said it a number of times before, and I'll say it again. There's a fun fact about fungi. There's a lot of fun facts about fungi, but this one is particularly remarkable. Underneath the forest floor, there tends to be an old growth of mycelium. Mycelium is like the brain network of fungi. What it does, among so many other things, is interact with the entire forest as a regulating function. It provides nutrients to trees, for example. It helps regulate things in a flowing and dynamic way. And here's what's very interesting. If a pathogen enters one end of the forest, the mycelium picks up on that and starts sending information all around, comparing notes about the pathogen, running little tests, sending information back to where the pathogen is, and this is all done in an attempt to find a way to neutralize, or perhaps even cure the pathogen, or cure the effects of it. The mandate. Seems a number of us have had this kind of mandate impetus to be comparing notes, using our own network to exchange information about any number of pathogens, so to speak, metaphorically speaking. Yeah, phenomenal things. That intelligence, that luminosity, in a sense, that is behind these things. Call it whatever, works best to some people. Some people call it God. Some people call it spirit. Some, I don't know, whatever they want to call it. Source? You can see it for yourself. It's pretty phenomenal. See is not the right word exactly, because it's different. It's using different kind of gadgetry in one's body. And, for example, feelings and emotions are also data processing, just like thoughts. If you've got these things railing against each other, well, it's gonna jank up your data processing. But if these things are fleshed out, leveled up, grown up, discombobulated, defragmented, well, you just might end up having something akin to sonar, in a manner of speaking. Probably already do, in any number of ways. It just might not compute. Because the universal RX for advice has been to look away, not pay much attention to that. And yet there's such a profound intelligence going on with all of it. And there's a responsibility of being something of a forest warden for one's own ecosystem. This is far from some kind of selfish endeavor. Because that ecosystem is interacting with any number of things at any given time. Not to mention other ecosystems at all times, because we're always in one. And moving through any number of them. Yeah, it's important. Maybe I'll leave it at that for now. No, maybe one more thing. Yeah, all right, one more thing. Yeah, this is probably not going to come off very well, but whatever. Selfishness isn't necessarily a bad thing. I know. Hear me out. Ironically, guess what? The denial and suppression of it is what really creates the monsters within. And they start pulling the strings outside of one's awareness, one's preferred awareness. It'll manifest as denial of one's actions. Perhaps little pernicious threads of envy and things like that. Which, oh, nope, I'm not like that. Nope. Is that right? And yet, what you got going on in there, friend? I ain't judging, I'm just saying it's the denial of it which creates the aberration. And by getting a dialogue going with that, well, you just might find a very wounded part of oneself that needs some healing, some leveling up. And one way to get down to that is to start giving a voice to it, where it's at. Where is it at? Why does it feel that way? What's it disconnected from? Can help. Big time. Thanks for tuning in.